When I think about the experience that women are having right now with perimenopause and menopause, on one hand, I'm incredibly grateful that the conversation has opened up. And on the other hand, I'm incredibly concerned because we are now looking at menopause as a condition in which a medicine is needed, a condition in which we can stop the suffering that women are going through, which we never want women to suffer, but we have looked at it through a more conventional medicine lens. Dr. Mindy here.
Your body is in a war zone.
Different parts of the brain get activated depending upon how stressed you are.
When you look at it from that inflammatory.
It's interesting. I mean, that has some merit to it for sure.
And you can't control everything.
I'd say.
And what about a woman who is not pregnant, but she's aiming?
For starters, Nidhi, let me just say welcome to the Resetter podcast. This is, of all the places I go to talk about health, this might be my favorite. So I'm really excited to have you here today. So let me just start off by saying welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a conversation I've been looking forward to for the last few months. So I'm glad we're finally here together.
Amazing, amazing. So, it's interesting when I think about the experience that women are having right now with perimenopause and menopause. On one hand, I'm incredibly grateful that the conversation has opened up. And on the other hand, I'm incredibly concerned because we are now looking at menopause as a condition in which a medicine is needed, a condition in which we can stop the suffering that women are going through, which we never want women to suffer, but we have looked at it through a more conventional medicine lens. And I see it in all the research I've done as an incredible transformative process that a woman goes through that should be honored. So when I first heard about your work and how you've taken Ayurvedic medicine and applied it to this journey, I was like, wow, this is exciting because we need to go back to the ancient principles. So with that in mind, can you just, because I don't even know the depth of Ayurvedic medicine, but can you start off by telling us what is so powerful, what is Ayurveda and what is so powerful about this approach to health?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to start at the basic, like the basic definition of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda means literally the science of life.
Wow.
Ayu means life, Veda means science. It's also the sister science of yoga. They both come from the same Vedic tradition.
Got it.
But now, being the science of life, it covers everything that has to do with life, which means, yes, treatment and prevention of diseases and conditions, but also lifestyle, nutrition, exercise, fertility, menopause, childcare, social conduct. How do you choose a mate? If it has to do with human life, if it has to do with human life, Ayurveda has it covered. And some of the current trends, Mindy, like intermittent fasting. I mean, you're the queen of fasting. So, a lot of them have their roots like turmeric, ashwagandha, oil pulling, dry scrubbing, tongue scraping. They all have their roots in Ayurveda. There were other traditions who may have offered similar practices, but Ayurveda also has strong beliefs and a strong foundation. It's laid for these practices in tremendous detail.
Okay.
But, what is Ayurveda to me and how is it that I practice it? It's literally the only science that I've seen, Mindy, that understands the rhythms and the patterns, basically the energetics. What separates what's animate from inanimate, right? Like my wax statue would be different from me simply because I have the vibration of the cell. I have the beating of a heart and my breath and a pulse and all of that, these energetic patterns, right? Even outside in the universe, the seasons, the rotation, the revolution, this is what really makes the universe happen. And Ayurveda understands this science of seasons, of day, and all of this so precisely. And this basic understanding that when we see a season, like when we see snowfall in spring, you and I both know that we'd be concerned. We're like, oh my God, what's going on?
Yeah.
But Ayurveda understands what allows you to stay in balance, what takes you out of balance. And it also understands the nature of everything that exists on the planet. And it has a certain framework that defines it. So it uses a framework It uses the patterns of these the understanding of these patterns. And then it says, how do we bring everything back into balance? So it sounds a little vague right now, but it's a very, very precise science.
So the way I would look at that is if I'm looking at metabolic switching, part of the challenge we had with the metabolic crisis is everybody was just staying in their sugar burner system. But when we brought fasting to the world, then all of a sudden people were in that fat burning metabolism. So now they're back into a natural rhythm that has them more in balance. Would that be like an example of what Ayurveda is trying to do? Okay.
Yes. But like this is how Ayurveda would talk about it, right? We were all overly building, we were building, right? In our bodies, high fats, high carbs, extreme carb, and your body always had to deal with those sugary, refined foods all the time. And then what is the opposite of building, right? There are 3 cycles in nature, and we can get into that: building, transformation, and decay, and everywhere, whether it's spring is building and summer is transformation, because everything transforms into fruits and flowers and all of that. And then there's autumn, which is decline, right? So if you're building excessively, there's excessive building, then you have to give it the antidote, which is now you stop building, you let it go. So you can actually start cleansing. And of course, after all the refined foods and the sugar and everything goes out, then any excess tissue that you've had. So Ayurveda starts looking at cycles as patterns and then antidotes accordingly.
Oh, I love that. One of the biggest things that I noticed when I started teaching fasting was when fasting first went out to the world, everybody got so excited. They got so many results. And then they started fasting all the time. And this is where Fast Like a Girl even came from. I was like, no. The goal wasn't to go from eating all the time to fasting all the time. The goal was to create a rhythm that works with your body. And that's where the principles came from. What's intriguing to me about what you're bringing forward to the world is the idea that there's a rhythm that's happening for us when we go into perimenopause and menopause. And I think this is that idea is so important to bring forward because and I'm so curious your opinion on this, because there's a part of me that's like, are we meant to just go from hormones to no hormones, and now we're trying to add hormones back in exogenously? Like, what is the rhythm that we're missing right now in that conversation that Ayurveda can bring forward?
See, Mindy, thank you for doing the work in terms of the fasting like a girl, that we're not meant to do either, yo-yo between these 2 extremes. Yeah. But you're absolutely right. And can I start by addressing what you said, right when we started this conversation? And you said, one of the things you said is that we're looking at menopause like it's disease.
Right.
And there's another half that's looking at menopause like it's aging. The truth is menopause is neither disease nor aging. I mean, can you imagine if women started thinking that we're aging in our 40s? We're spending half of our lives thinking that we're aging.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So it's neither. It's just it's a neuroendocrine transition. And unfortunately, we understand menarche, right? Like menarche comes with its own challenges. And menarche, or even when young boys start moving into adolescence, there's a change of voice, or there's sudden acne, and there's this discomfort, getting comfortable in this new skin that they've developed. So yes, every transition, every neuroendocrine transition that a human being will experience will be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And some will be more challenging than others. But I'm going to put the Ayurvedic understanding and lens the way I see it on this. And Ayurveda looks at your life in seasons as well, right?
Okay.
Like your childhood is the spring of life. And in the spring of life, you're building. It's a moist phase, and which means your body is prepared. It's geared up to continuously build cytoplasm, new cells, and building of cells, excessive cytoplasm, fluids, juices, all of that. Then you come to the summer of your life. Now, this is really what will explain menopause is your menarche when you start, right? After that building phase, when a young girl is 13, 14, hot hormones start to set in. Right? The body heats up. Mm-hmm. We know the mind of the teenager, we suddenly have a reproductive function. The body is able to reproduce. Without heat, there's no transformation that happens. So there's sudden heat, and the hormones bring heat. The way I like to define it is, think of an oil lamp filled with oil. So the flame is beautiful and it's sharp, and the oil is really, really full as well. Now, throughout the period of our youth, we kind of use up that fuel. And then when you arrive at this menopause and perimenopause, it is the depletion of that fuel.
Okay.
And you come to that point, right? So just think about it, like it's drying. It's a process of drying. Our entire period of youth is a process of drying. And if I tell people this, if you've ever worked with an oil lamp, when you notice that the oil lamp is at its tail end, the flame will become very volatile and the oil starts to deplete and there's smoke. And that is exactly the experience that people have at menopause and perimenopause. There's a dryness, there's an increased heat, there's a volatility, and then there is all, smoke, fire. And that is really, it's like using up your fuel. Okay. And how are you drying? So there are ways that you can do to have this as a gentler journey, because the truth is menopause is so difficult, Mindy, because we're all drying sooner. We are using our essential resources. We're all burning out quicker. And that's why we're burning out quicker, burning out harsher, without replenishing our fuels in many, many different ways. And we can talk about what Ayurveda talks about, how you replenish your fuels. But after that point, after you go to the other side of menopause, right, 3 years after that, something wonderful happens in the body that nobody talks about, right? There is this U-bend research that women in their 50s, right, like your amygdala changes the way it responds. So it responds very positively to positive experiences, but it doesn't respond strongly to negative experiences. The emotional control center changes the way it works in your brain. So women actually become happier in their 60s and 70s. They start to take things much more lightly. And it's the first time in your life you're not dating, you're not mating in the same way. At least you're not dating and mating in the same way. You're not in your nesting phase. Most people are out of their nesting phase. Today things are a little bit different, but historically we're out of a nesting phase. And we have this tremendous opportunity, where women can, for the first time, like truly be free to exist and find themselves and make it's a second teenage. Honestly, that time 3 years after menopause is a second teenage. And of course, then on the physical level and the lifestyle level and nutrition level, there's a lot that can be done that can continue to support you, because the rest of the journey is drying. It's autumn and winter.
Yep.
But you can have a beautiful autumn. I mean, once if you're a skier, you're sailing through that winter, for example, right? So if you know how to care for yourself through these phases, and most importantly, even through your perimenopausal years, and even like I have 2 young daughters, Mindy, 17 and 13, and I'm teaching them how to care for them at this stage.
Yeah, right.
And that's what I was taught. Because if you do that and you don't dry out quickly, like I always say, drying is dying, So you preserve your fuels. And then when you're at that stage, it's not quite as harsh.
I love that explanation. And especially the 3 years out, that was literally, I just got done researching the whole neurochemical system for Age Like a Girl. And very similar that I saw is that you have a whole system change. Oxytocin system changes, the autonomic nervous system changes, and it changes for the better, which is a part of the menopause conversation we are not having. It's like we went from a place where we didn't talk about it, everybody suffered in silence, to talking about it all the time, and everybody's confused. But what is not being talked about enough is what an incredible process this could be, and where you're going in those postmenopausal years is someplace that you have never really experienced as a woman, and a place that you are sitting in your most powerful part of your life. So I loved the way you explained that. I also like this idea of the drying out. So then that leads me to question, when we go into perimenopause, is there a lifestyle shift that needs to happen in order to adapt to the drying out?
Yes, absolutely. Right. So, Mindy, I think we can all successfully agree that today's urban woman is burning out quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Except for the fact that the problem is that we associate burning out only with work. And that's not true.
Ooh,
right.
Yes.
Burning out is many, many things. I mean, in my book and in the way I explain it to people I work with, it's like we have very solar lifestyles. And I mean, all of the Vedic sciences, right, where yoga and Ayurveda comes from, the macro and the micro are very connected. What's happening in the macro is happening in the micro. So global warming is not very different from inflammation. Burning out is not, they all come under the same set of things. But the thing is, what are the things that we are doing, right? besides working too hard, working out too much,
Oh, yeah.
excessive caffeine. I mean, we all know caffeine is dehydrating. What is dehydrating? Hot and dry. That's the meaning of dehydrating. It's hot and it's dry. The sun is hot and dry. So it's like very solar. I call it very solar. So excessive caffeine, excessive alcohol, working, I said working too much, working out too much, staying up too many nights, skimping on fat a little too much, intensity in our minds. This is all too solar for our own good.
Right.
And just as there is global warming, where there's no wonder inflammation starts much earlier. Earlier, inflammation was related only to aging. Today, it can happen at any point in our lives. So we are overly solar. So the first thing that I say, right, like we are so quick to bring in remedies. We're so quick to say, give me something to do. But the first treatment in Ayurveda is prevention of cause.
Right.
So we're like, what are you doing? What are you doing that it's leading to this? So first, let's dial down on all of those.
Okay.
So dial down on how much you work, how hard you work, how you organize your day, because there are certain times where, neurochemically, we're designed to have better focus. So I help people design their day, for example. How much are you working out? I mean, people are burning themselves out, even with excessive working out, drying themselves, muscle injury, just, all kinds of other hormonal issues. Also caffeine, right? I'm like, I tell everybody, don't give it up completely, but the idea of bullet coffee or adding milk or adding cardamom or changing the time that you're consuming. Alcohol, what are you doing with that? But also bringing in many, many tools, right? Like I'll tell you the two biggest tools, Mindy, and like I can give you a whole range of tools and all the herbs and all of that. But the two biggest tools that I say, which are accessible and easy for everyone, one is exhalations. And which means that we as human beings today are inhaling short inhales throughout our day. So if anybody is using a wearable, right, and if you were wearing wearables, we would realize that on an average, right now you and I are having a conversation, 12 to 20 breaths. Now, if I was stuck in traffic and I was racing, those 12 to 20 breaths would be 30 to 40, could be 30 to 40, could be 25, way higher, shorter breaths. When we're super busy, we start, and every inhale that our body takes, right, every time we go into an inhale, it's a sympathetic reaction. It's a fight or flight. Every exhale is a parasympathetic. It's repair. It's rest and digest. If every inhale is action, every exhale is repair. If every inhale is doing, every exhale is being. And that's why at the end of a really busy day, most of us would sit down and be like, we would exhale, forcefully exhale, right? The body goes into a sigh because the body has had enough. But when we actively learn something called resonance breathing, where you're actively learning, and I do this sometimes in the middle of a conversation, Mindy, like you wouldn't even be able to tell. But while I'm speaking and using my mouth, I'm just becoming conscious of having a longer exhale through my nose. And it's just by bringing awareness to it, you automatically go into a longer exhale. But that is very refueling to the body. When your body goes in parasympathetic, it releases the neurotransmitters and hormones that are required for the body to refuel itself.
Right.
And that's why after a very stressed period, we're all dry, right? Dry eyes, dry throat, dry ears. But if you're just relaxing, you're in a tub, you're in a spa, you're having a great day, almost there's moisture on your skin. Your eyes are not as dry. There's a replenishment that has happened. So those exhales go a long, long way. And it's something that's available to us in perimenopause, in postmenopause. So that is one thing that I say, must be part of everybody's toolkit.
Yeah. So I love this because it's free and it's easy. And I'm a big fan of healthcare not costing everybody a ton of money. So I want to go back to this idea. Let's say I'm 40 years old, 41, and I'm come roaring into these perimenopausal experience, and my career is taking off. My kids are teenagers. And like this idea that I would need to slow down, otherwise I'm drying everything out, and I'm really creating more menopausal symptoms. What would the breathing technique look like? Is it something you do in the morning? You talked about how you do it during the day. Is it like a tool that you just need to be aware of and do it as much as possible? And does it counterbalance this burnout life that so many of us live?
Such a great way of putting that question in. So I would say that it does require practice, right? So there's an app called the Breathing app. My great friend Eddie Stern has created this app, and you can it's a free app. You can go and set up a timer for resonance breath, right? So it'll give you a gong that goes 5 seconds inhale, 7 seconds exhale, and you can pick your times. So you can do 3 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever you want. But then you start practicing that. And I tell everybody, you practice it in the morning, you practice it in the night. You can even set it for 2 minutes. You can do it. You could be driving and say, while I'm driving, I'm going to be doing this. While I'm working, if you can do this 5 times a day, I mean, it's 1 or 2 minutes, 5 times a day. Like I'm like, do it like prayer, but you're reminding your body. If you can actually take a break, even while you're working, when I say take a break, and like take a break from being in your sympathetic nervous system, from being in chronic stress. If you can break your chronic stress, even while you're driving, and you're training yourself to do this now without the app that is accessible to you, within a few weeks, you'll realize, right? In my busiest periods, like normally I have a lot of rituals that I practice, but in my busiest periods, I have to say that this is what holds me together. And you could be in the shower, you could be just wiping your body with a towel, you could be opening a refrigerator, you could be doing whatever you want. But you could be in the middle of a conversation and you go into that longer exhale. But yes, the caveat is it does require practice.
Yeah.
And you want to start with the resonance breath and an app, something on YouTube, whatever you find, simple, free. And then you bring it. Also, I tell people that sometimes when your body, Mindy, I used to be super rushed as a child. And I used to be very rushed and I wasn't efficient because I broke things along the way. I forgot things along the way. But I realized that you don't have to slow your body down. You have to just slow your breath down. And your body actually becomes more efficient.
Ooh,
because you'll make better
that.
decisions. You'll have more clarity. You'll move faster. You'll be more agile. You'll be less like all over the place. It's just done wonders. Like I feel like there's a lot that can get done.
Interesting. So you can slow time down is what I heard. It's like putting you out of that sympathetic state, which also with that brings that high beta brainwave where you're like thinking. What I just heard is this simple tool done 5 times a day. And I assume we only have to do it a couple of rounds, could really prime the parasympathetic and get you out of the sympathetic response.
I would say you want to do it for a couple of minutes when you're starting out at least.
Great.
People do it for up to 10 minutes. I mean, I tell people, like I worked with these really busy journalists in New York, like a ton of them. And I said to all of them that you just play it while you're working. So then you're conditioning. I mean, like at the end of the day, we're all Pavlov's dogs,
Right.
Like you play it when you're working, and then before you know it, you've trained yourself to breathe like that.
Yeah. Amazing.
It's so easy.
Yeah, a friend of mine, this is a new tool that I've been really thinking about this year because of, the evacuations from the fires and things like that. And I started getting a lot of anxiety. And a friend of mine who's a performance coach really helped me understand some meditation techniques, some moving energy techniques. And she's like, you have to do them ahead of the anxiety attack. And it's like you're preparing yourself for how to handle the anxiety attack. And what I just heard and what you just said is that if at 40, every woman knew this, and then we just went into, okay, now I'm 40, I need to start practicing this breathing technique so I can be ahead of the irritability and the anxiety and the depression. Is that a good way to look at it?
Yes, Mindy. In fact, before people start working with me, I'm such a stickler for creating what I call the toolkits. It's exactly what you define. I give them an a la carte list of, first is preventative tools, things you do every day before you get on the battlefield of life. So I tell people, you pick your preventative, 2, 3, 4, whatever you want. And then you practice them before life happens to you. And the reason is so your body learns how to stay safe. And then they're battlefield tools. When you're in the moment, and things begin to pick heat. And the tools in the battlefield would actually look very different from the preventative tools sometimes. And they could be drastically different at times. But like you're in the middle of a conversation, things are beginning to get intense. What tools are you going to bring? But your body knows how to feel safe, even though it's gotten there through a different route. But the minute it knows how to feel safe, it's so easier to access that place.
Right.
But then you also have a third set of tools, which is repair tools, because we all need to heal from the day. And we need to heal from crisis periods. So you definitely want to have in your toolkit tools that can help. I mean, alcoholics are made at night. Food addicts, sex addicts, TV addicts are all made at night, right? Because we all need to
so
heal from the day.
interesting. That is so well said, by the way. It's really true that it's like that transition out of day into night is really, but that was so powerfully said.
Yeah, and that is so intense for the body, right? Because I mean, you're studying this, so all the excitatory mediators become the inhibitory mediators, and it's so difficult for the body. So yeah, and so it's exactly what you said. But you want to start thinking about your tools like that, and you want to have enough of all tools so that you know what to pull out of your toolkit at any given point.
Right. It's interesting. I was just having this conversation with a couple of other authors that write books on women's health, and I was saying how I think a lot of times what happens to women is that we're in such a patriarchal pace. We're so go all the time that at the end of the day, we don't actually balance ourselves out. We just go neutral. So we're in this high state of performance, and then we sit on the couch with a glass of wine and watch our favorite Netflix series. But what we don't realize is that we haven't balanced out the doing with any technique. We just go neutral, and we're sitting on the couch and just numbing ourselves. So what I just heard in what you just said is this is a way of not just going neutral. You're not just chilling out.
Oh, true.
You're actually repairing yourself from the frenzy of the day, and it's free and it's breath, and that's super cool.
Mindy, you're so perceptive. I just love it. And the way you summarize everything is just delightful. Thank you. The one thing one of the other ways that really sticks for people is this, right? Women are juicy. That's the truth.
Yes, we are.
Breasts, we have breast milk, we have amniotic fluid, we have a menstrual cycle. I mean, when you think of a lunar goddess, you can totally imagine this woman with this completely feminine energy walking through, right? And in fact, Mindy, can I just say, when I was growing up, and I grew up in a really large joint family, and there was arranged marriage at that point when I was a young girl, right? And when they would look for potential matches for my elder cousins, the boys in the family, I would hear the elders say that, oh, does she have moisture in her eyes? Oh yeah, she's great. She has such moisture in her eyes. And that she has a fluid face. And I'm like, what does that even mean, right? And they're all this is a sign of fertility, right? Because because we looked at it's a sign of fertility, right? So it used to be a sign of fertility, and that's how from generation to generation you learn how to evaluate mates, because at the end of the day we're primal beings.
Yep.
And so of course it makes sense then that when we're going to our perimenopause and menopause years and our eggs have gone down, right? In our early 30s, the amount of eggs we have go down to 10%, which most people don't know. In our 40s, it's gone down to about 3%. And then we're living with that 3% of eggs and such low estrogen for good 7, 8, 10 years, with just estrogen, progesterone doing its own madness. And it's natural because the body is moving towards that dryness, right? But you don't want to dry more than it is meant to dry.
Right.
So, for example, breath was one practice, but Mindy, I should say the second practice.
Yeah, I was going to say, give me another one. Yeah, please continue.
Yeah, there's tons, but but the second one that I'd really like is that, we the microbiome changes in the gut, right? Because again, the same thing happens. It's not so juicy. The mucosal lining, again, all the juices dry. So the mucosal lining starts to dry up a little bit and the environment changes. The colonies of bacteria change. So you cannot consume, I can't tell you go and eat a lot of fat. I can't say that because you cannot break it down. So skin is another channel of consumption.
Okay.
And Ayurveda really values this channel of consumption. So we use body oiling. Have you heard of the practice of body oiling, Mindy?
I have years ago. Yeah, tell me more.
It is, in Ayurveda, so firstly, the word for oil is in Sanskrit is sneha. Sneha is also the word for love. It is it's the same word. Oil and love, same word, sneha. And it is such a self-loving practice. And I cannot even tell you the benefits go. So from just replenishing the microbiome on your skin, this is where it starts, right? This is not where it ends. It might, because healthy microbiome are lipophilic, which means they thrive on fat. They eat your own fat to live. So it replenishes your microbiome, but it also has the ability to detox your pores. This oil goes inside, nourishes, moisturizes, and brings the grime back to the surface. But it also has the ability to lubricate your joints, right? Joints are such a big problem. Plus, the oil that is used is sesame oil. And sesame is known, while there are no studies done in terms of the practice of oiling, but sesame is known to be a balancer for both estrogen as well as progesterone.
Oh,
So the
neat.
oil that we use are always sesame based. I mean, this is not a coincidence, right? But this, again, it's great for lymphatic drainage, the health of your joints, for the synthesis of vitamin D, because vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. It protects you from all kinds of radiation. And it is such a calming practice for the nervous system. And it goes such a long way to replenish the juices in your body. So this simple practice of oiling your body before you go, ideally before you exercise. I know it sounds crazy, but we can talk more about that. But if not before you exercise and before you go to shower, not after, before you go into the shower, you oil your body, you rub, it takes 5 to 7 minutes, not too long. And then you go and you shower and we realize that the shower doesn't, water is very drying, right? Mindy, if you went into the water, it's so drying for the skin.
Yeah.
And this, it protects the skin barrier. Your skin is glowing more and you feel better. You're such a game changer.
Amazing.
And we also use oil in every orifice. I should give you this disclaimer, right? Eyes, nose is nose nasya drops, mouth oil pulling, ears, navel, vagina, anus. I mean, there are oil therapies for every part of your body.
Are you, so then would you have a bottle of sesame oil next to your shower, you rub it all over your body? Would you want to put it in the different orifices and then take a shower? And how long does it need to stay on you? Because that seems like
Beautiful.
it could be a really easy, I shower at night. So I'm thinking how easy this could be just to do all of that and then shower, and it's another way to support the system.
Yeah. So the orifices, they all need to be learned. So you want to learn how to do your oil pulling. You want to learn how to use the nasal nasya drops, and that's a separate oil for that. But sesame oil can be used for oil pulling. So the two things that are very easy is oil pulling and applying it on your body. Now the practice can take any time from 5 minutes to you can do it for 15 minutes. You can do it for as long as you want. But I would say, at least start at 5. And most days that's what I do, right? And you would do it like you would do moisturizer. It also eliminates the need for moisturizing excessively. And the only thing that I tell people is treat it like a ritual, not like a routine. Like you caress it. How much do we get touched in our 40s and 50s and 60s?
Yeah.
You want to think about this is your time to caress yourself, to touch yourself. You play your favorite music and light a candle and just make it sexy, and this is your practice. This is giving back to yourself, and the benefits go a long way. So 5 to 7 minutes does so much and people notice it right away. Mindy, in my entire practice, I've never seen somebody who's tried Abhyanga and then given up Abhyanga. It's called Abhyanga, but body oiling is another word as well. Yeah.
I'm wondering if it would help menopausal women sleep too, because that's a really big challenge. And again, if we look at it through the lens of what we've been talking about today, which is you go into these high states of performance and then all we do is crash on the couch and watch our series and drink wine. We're only going neutral. We're not. And so, gosh, you can breathe throughout the day. You can oil before you go, and you're just balancing the extreme performative state that so many of us find ourselves in. And what I love is it's not like you're saying, don't be in those performative states. It's very much like why I fell in love with fasting, which is I found it was really difficult to get people to change their behaviors around the quality of the food, but I could get them to change their behaviors around the timing of the food. So the two things you just gave, so easy to do. And although I think you and I would both agree slowing down would be good, but so many women can't do that.
Yes, absolutely, Mindy. And I think you talked about sleep right now, right? And I think we've got it wrong a little bit. There's so much importance to morning routine that people forget about evening. I tell everybody, instead of saying that, oh, I couldn't wake up early because I slept late, I said, we want to say that I couldn't sleep late because I woke up early. And you want to have a night routine. I tell women, you want to first start your nightly routine. If you have no routine, let's have, how do you unwind at night? What do you do? How do you slow down? And this oil practice can be used especially in the bottom of your feet. There's like a Kansa wand. Like there's a wand called the Kansa wand. It's like there's gua sha, and there's a wand for the face. It's like a alloy, copper and tin, and that's used. But even without that, you can just use plain sesame oil, massage your feet. You want to wear socks or wipe it down so you don't slip in the bathroom in the night. And then you want to so slowing down at night changes how you wake up in the morning. And how you wake up in the morning changes how your day goes. And how your day goes, again, changes how your evening goes.
Yeah.
But I think we need to really give a lot of importance to how we slow down towards the end of the day. That's more important than how do we wake up, because that's going to happen anyways.
So give me an example of a nighttime routine that you either use or you've used with your patients.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, universally everybody talks about like dimming the lights, keeping those blue screens away. So I'm not going to do too much. I'm not going to go too much on that. But I think one of the most important things is not eating after 6:30.
Oh, yeah.
I came from a family tradition where nobody ever eats, but also like till even about 100 years ago when we didn't have electricity in our homes, we were not eating big dinners. So and then the first thing that I offer is you want to finish food by 6:30, nothing big and solid.
Yep.
And dinner is always for health. Lunch, you can indulge a little bit. So I think that really starts to set the tone.
I like that.
And again, I'm going to keep it super easy, right, Mindy? I mean, of course, I can say all these complex things and make people curious, but the truth is, it's fairly easy. What I really like to engage in is something called evening ragas, ragas. And ragas are these musical compositions. And these beautiful ragas are created, in the ancient times in India, beautiful music compositions, classical music. They were created for the evening because those scientists understood that our body is going through this transition. This again, neurochemical transition, and it's difficult, right? As they change hands, as serotonin upgrades to melatonin, and all of that happens, the body goes through a difficult period. And most people start feeling anxious, right? At dusk time, they feel anxious.
Right.
So you just play that music. Like every evening, you want to start playing that music.
Oh my God, I love this.
And yeah. And then I highly recommend that if you have an argument, save it for the daytime. Like you actually say, okay, listen, I want to talk to you about something, but I'm going to talk to you about it in the morning.
Yep. Yeah, my husband and I, when I went through perimenopause into menopause, I finally had to say, after 6:00, don't talk to me about anything that is not going to put a smile on my face. Because I was
so smart, Mindy. You are the OG of this. Like, you know how to do this.
I just was like, I'm not. Otherwise, it means I won't sleep for like ever. So I love that. I also, something intuitively I started doing this year from just the trauma that I went through it with the fires, is I started playing chanting music at night. And I found that there was...
That was going to be my next thing. But anyways,
really?
Finish, because I want to hear your story. Okay,
and I actually have one song. It was and I don't know the name of the song, but it was by Jay Uttal, who I have listened to his music in yoga classes forever. And it's because of the repetition. I knew that primed your vagal tone. But what it's done now is that, like, I went traveling, and when I got in the airport and I could feel myself stressed, I just put his song on because I had already used it as a way to condition my nervous system at the end of the day.
Basically, Mindy, so brilliant, right? And listen, we as, growing up in India, we were given these chants. I was just telling my mom on the phone last night, I said, Mom, I just go into what I call Nokar mantra, a certain chant. And I'm like, something happens, I just go into it, like in my mind. I just like always, as a child, all the time. And it is so powerful. And it's such a great practice at night, right? Because it's like, and even... It's a very simple science, right? When your nervous system is exposed to the same vibration for a period of time, whether it's white noise or it's a chant. Now, the chant is a little bit more significant because, it has Sanskrit is a very vibrational language, and a lot of these Sanskrit chants, they kind of like they play music with your endocrine glands, right? With your chakras. And it's not a joke. It's not a coincidence that there's 7 chakras, 7 primary endocrine glands that are being studied, and there's 7 notes. There's 7 musical notes.
Oh, that's interesting.
And there's a whole science of this music, raga chikitsa, like healing through this classical compositions. But like simply go on Spotify, go to YouTube, play evening ragas, and then, chanting. Like in my family, what I'm doing more and more is I just do an evening smudge. And it takes a moment. I take an incense stick, I like go around the house and I set an intention. We chant together, me and my girls. But you're all setting for the evening. And I think what is very important is for any one evening, you want to have an evening freshening. Whether you're taking a shower in the evening or getting into your pajamas, you want to take that time, to like wash your face, get a change of clothes, because that sets the mood. Again, it creates a whole different mood. And then a couple of practices before sleeping. You can have a warm beverage if you're into milk, like a warm cup of milk with a cardamom powder can, feel like a tranquilizer very naturally without medication. And keep putting your legs up against the wall in this yoga pose called Viparit Karni. So laying in your bed, with your legs up against the wall. And that really helps to lower your blood pressure. Again, brings your body into the parasympathetic state. It's for free. You can play music while you're doing it. And then if you want to do the foot massage, cooler room, heavier blanket. I mean, like Ayurveda has this exact specific recommendations that today's sleep experts are going to.
Oh, amazing. I have a weighted blanket. I really like it. So you're saying
a
cooler room. Oh, yeah. Whew, yeah. That's the key to great sleep. But let's go back. So just so I'm clear, Raga, you can just go to Spotify and it's Raga. Is that how you spell it?
Yeah. Yeah, and evening ragas. So they're evening ragas. These are specifically designed when all the daytime juices are becoming nighttime juices. So they're designed for that specific transition.
Okay.
So you want to do evening ragas, and they're morning ragas, and there's 7 dawn ragas and dusk ragas and all kinds of ragas. But evening ragas is what you want to stick to for the evening.
Let's run the scenario that you've been working all day and you're now, maybe you're going to go lean into season 3 of White Lotus, and you're gonna enjoy maybe some time sitting and watching a show with your husband. Would you do this ritual where you're listening to the ragas, your legs up the wall, putting the oil on? Is that best done like in the transition out of the day into the evening, or is it best done when you're really ready to transition your mind and your body and your nervous system to actually go to sleep?
Yeah. So to be honest with you, my honest answer is do it whenever feasible for you.
Yeah,
because
there
you
you
don't have
go.
The luxury.
Yeah, well
But
said.
when you have the luxury, you want to do it to transition out of any kind of mental activation. So after your White Lotus, or maybe you can start with a foot massage while you're watching your TV show, or maybe you could start with a certain practice and then you gradually want to, like, you want to be yawning when you're watching the TV. You want to be like, oh, I'm so relaxed and I'm ready to turn this off.
Perfect.
And you don't want to sit on like one of those slouchy couches. I mean, it'll look 5 days. People, anybody who's going to try this is going to hate me for 5 days, and then I promise you'll love me, because then you're not. Because the minute you're like in those slouchy couches, you're not getting up from that place. Like you're not. It's going to be second and third and fourth episode of whatever you're watching. So that happens, right? So you want to inspire yourself. And like, I also like to have something. What am I inspiring myself to do next? Right. You want to be inspired with what you're doing next. And also the timing of the sleep is important, Mindy. Okay. So even though I don't say it, people know that sleeping at 10 p.m. is ideal. You can't do 10, you do 10:30. You can't do 10:30, do 11. You can't, whatever you're doing, you just move back 10 minutes.
Why is 10 ideal?
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, depending on the seasons and place, but 10 is just an easy number to say out there, but around there, because between 10 and 2, your melatonin surges at its highest. The body goes into this deep, beautiful metabolic repair. That lymphatic system comes alive, which is cleaning all the debris from all the nonsense we're thinking. As human beings, we're the only species that have this ability to think and create debris as a result in our nervous system. So that happens between 10 and 2. And many, like so many people at 2 o'clock, they wake up for a bathroom break. They wake up in a sweat. They wake up suddenly hot. That's like signaling the end of this metabolic repair, like internal metabolic, like the daytime repair from the day, everything that's pending. So the body is signaling, that, okay, this is done. And then that second phase begins from 2 to 4:30, which is when the body goes into like now creating regeneration of new tissue, right? Like your growth hormone surges and prolactin surges. And you want to give yourself the whole window as many days as you can, from the 10 to 4:30, and then, some more if you can. But those are really important hours of sleep. And once in a while, and sometimes we can miss it, but just having this consciousness allows us to want to sleep a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay. So that was beautiful. So we have breath, and then we have oil, and then we have an evening routine. What else would you recommend to be
Yeah.
able to transition
Yeah.
into this depletion of hormones.
Yeah, I will say, right? So I'm going to go into a little bit of supplements and herbs and a little bit
Okay.
more on like, food. And a lot of the food also does align with modern nutrition and what it has to say. I will say that one of the first things, I'm going to go with nutrition first because we started there. So one of the first things you want to do is start eating. We already talked about a 6:30 dinner, but you want to start eating lighter dinner. In fact, it is a time, I mean, you are the queen of fasting. If you want to fast, this is the time to do it,
Yeah.
and do not eat much of a dinner. And in the Ayurvedic books, they talk about barley soup and moong lentil soup, if at all.
Okay.
You know, and or
For
people
dinner?
can do broths. People can, yeah, like a rice broth or
Okay.
a bone broth or a barley broth or a moong lentil broth.
Okay.
Those are great dinners to go. So you want to go because, of course, like your visceral fat percentage goes from 7% to 30% for most women, right? And your microbiome is changing. Your body cannot break down large amounts of foods, and it's not in its building phase. It's in its preservation. It's like we want to just let the body be in preservation and in that steady place. So that dinner, so you want to go down on dinner. So you want to go easy on dinner. But in terms of food choices, again, yes, not maybe really becoming conscious about all the fats which are not of the greatest quality that you're consuming and dialing down on those, like excessive cheese, excessive, ice cream or
Like making
and
sure you don't
throughout the
do.
day.
Yeah. Okay. Just
Yeah.
in general. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, like basically, see, Mindy, I've had clients who are like, oh, because ghee is so great, I'm having oodles and oodles of ghee. But it doesn't work after a certain age because your body cannot break down fat the same way. And then it kind of becomes, your body is anyways waiting to build cholesterol at that phase. For a few years, your body is like, you give me something, I make it into cholesterol because I'm not building any more tissue during this transition. Just during the transition, a lot of people come out of it. Right? So you want to just evaluate all the fat that you're consuming and see if your body is able to break it down. If it is not able to break it down, olive oil is a really good fat. Eating foods which have the good fats like avocados, great, keep them all. But anything that's of especially poor quality, like a lot of cream cheese, a lot of cheese, a lot of ice cream, excessive dairy, you just want to dial down a little bit on that. You don't want to go too crazy. But olive oil is great to bring in at this point again. So I tell people go 50-50 on olive oil and ghee. Don't do all ghee.
Okay. So and so you're watching your fats throughout the day, and where my fasting brain is interpreting what you're saying is that you would eat your bigger meal in the middle of the day or 1 or 2 o'clock, and then you can broth it up or soup it up at night, which makes so much sense, especially if you do bone broth, because you can really start to actually open up your fasting window maybe at 6 o'clock. And then you actually, it's a different way of fasting if that main meal is the middle of the day, which I can tell you as a postmenopausal woman is definitely my preferred meal situation. Have the largest meal at lunch or a late lunch. And then I usually innately was having a cup of tea or something warming at night. And then like my fasting window was already starting at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And it is in alignment with what you're saying.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah. And now there's so much like, Mindy, just like I've done so much research into like what really happens in the afternoon. Your insulin sensitivity is the highest, your gastrin is the highest, your ghrelin is risen to a good amount of point that where you eat, you enjoy the food and you break it down. Versus at night, you eat, your ghrelin asks for starchy foods and then you can't break it down. Like we're all kind of insulin resistant, mildly diabetic at night. So yeah, this is brilliant. But the foods that you can add is, and people go a little crazy about how they do protein. It is important to be mindful of protein. What I'm not happy about is that, especially here in the West, people forgot about protein for like the first 40 years of their life. And then suddenly they're waking up to protein, right? And the body's like, what is this new foreigner substance that you've given us? Versus in a lot of traditional cultures, we ate protein since kids, right? Like I had a bowl of lentils every single day of my life, right? I had some dairy, some lentils, lots of almonds. You want to train yourself to eat, small amount of healthy proteins, ideally cooked in a traditional way. I'm big on that because your body protein is too heavy. And there's a reason why protein was either always cooked, spiced because spices help to break down even the toxic metabolic waste from the cooking and the breaking down. It leaves so many free radicals because protein is so heavy. So spiced, watered down, right? Lentils were always watered down. Lentil soups, or they're fermented. Tofu.
Oh yeah.
Even we have a ton of, even in Indian and Ayurvedic cuisine, we have a ton of fermented lentil preparations. So, and like even cheese as a protein is fermented, and we have paneer that is fermented, so you want to eat it traditionally, how it was eaten. How did your ancestors eat it? Yeah.
And how the ancestors ate it is really important question. What spices help you? I really love that idea. My son is a chef, and so we geek out on food all the time. Yeah. And
amazing.
And so I'm thinking about, we've had so many spice discussions, but more from a flavor profile. But what you just said is that certain spices actually help you break down protein. Do all spices do that, or are there certain ones?
So Mindy, firstly, like when you see my book, I have like 2 pages. I have charts which give you all the which break it down even further. But I will tell you. So basically, what the proteins help you, like what spices help you to do. Like spices are hot in what we call inherent potency in Ayurveda, right? Spices, like the word spice by itself, like brings heat to your mind. And what spices help you to do, that because of the heat, right? Just how cooking is a hot process, because electricity is a hot thing. That's what can charge your foam. As long as it's warm, it can transform. And spices are very warming in nature, and it'll help to propel that breakdown to the next level. But not only that, most spices are antioxidants, and they help to neutralize free radicals. When things are metabolized, there's toxic metabolic waste. The heavier the food, the more the toxic metabolic waste. And right here, when you're cooking it with an antioxidant, it's like you're going to create the waste, I'm going to clean the waste. And that's why all traditions, ancient cultures, cooked in these spices. So yes, not only there's a spice like asafoetida, it's very pungent and strong, but it helps to break down proteins really well. So I wouldn't dare dream of eating a protein without asafoetida. A little bit of it, right? Small pinches needed. It's very, very strong. It's a resin from a tree, but also other things like carom seeds, very flavorful, delicious. And they're like little celery seeds looking kind of little seeds, very easily available in a lot of spice stores. And I think the US, like the West, is still waiting to discover its flavor. And once it does, it's going to be like a big superfood. But like carom seeds these two are really, really great for breaking down. Carom seeds.
Oh, good. I don't know this seed. I need to go find it.
You're going to love it, Mindy. I'm telling you, like just you try very little. And then, Mindy, I actually, even in my book, I guide people into how do you start? How do you build this relationship with spices? Like how do you go on a date with yourself in that spice store? Like how do you date these? How do you woo these spices? How do you smell? How do you like explore spices and then bring some to your home? And which are the starter spices and which are like next level spices? You want to do it. You want to have a relationship with these spices, and they tell you a lot. Like you learn a lot about the tradition where it came from just through having this relationship with your spices. So spices are one way. So you want to have your proteins eaten like it was traditionally. You want to have you want to moderate your fats, but include good fats. You want to start eating early, but you also want to include fiber. It is a very important time to include cooked fiber, and most people find it very uncomfortable to eat cruciferous vegetables. And once again, having, cooking your cruciferous vegetables in good fats with spices drastically lowers the bloat that they cause. Even fennel seeds, just fennel seeds for cruciferous vegetables, they enhance their taste, flavor, just fennel. That's it. And you'll see, and fennel goes with everything. Fennel goes with cauliflower, it goes with cabbage, it goes with Brussels sprouts. We do it all the time. And you'll see you're suddenly not as bloated. Also, you want to push that to lunchtime if you can. The fiber, again, you're pushing almost all foods to lunchtime. And I would say most people can do well. If you're doing this, you're oiling, you're listening to your ragas, you're making sure you're exhaling, you have your girlfriends, lots of them. Like I look at these boisterous women where I go to swim, Mindy. I go here to swim at Asphalt Green, and like 70, 80, 90-year-old women naked in the locker rooms. And they're like boisterous, and they're like young teenagers talking to each other. They're like, look at my hair. I got this new product. Oh, my husband's snoring so much at night. Oh my goodness. They are so cute. Yeah. And you have the chance to like not care about anything else in the world and enjoy this time.
It's so good. I love the way you describe the postmenopausal women in the locker room. So I'm so in alignment with everything you're teaching because I really feel like we already have all the answers, the primal answers, ancient tools that were given to us years ago that was to help us through this process. And we lost our way. So I'm so excited about what you're bringing forward. Where can people find your book and what can they expect in the book? Like, I'm excited to go take that spices chapter and I'm going to go unpack that with my son and see what we can come up with.
Yes, Mindy. And I'd still say, right, like it's very tempting for people to go into the later parts of the book, and I'll tell you what the book is called and why it was written. So the book is called Your Body Already Knows. Okay.
So beautiful.
And so I want to just take a moment to think about that your body already knows. We are
Yes,
the
it
only
does.
species on this planet.
Yeah.
We're the only species, Mindy, the most intelligent species who doesn't know how to live, right? Deer know when to wake up. They're not complaining about grazing on the same land every day. And
So
tigers
true.
don't get carried away because there was a new study about high frequency brainwave patterns in the morning and nocturne, and they're nursing mammals that will say no to certain foods because they're nursing, and they say yes to galactic goals. And I've seen bears in Alaska before their hibernation, like right before hibernation, devouring big cabbage heads so they can have that bowel movement. Animals. So just as all other species on the planet know, they rely less on information, more on instinct and wisdom. And we've gone so much into information that we've lost our wisdom. So this book, Your Body Already Knows, gives you a clear framework how to get away from the overwhelm of information. And how do you keep coming back to your wisdom using a framework? Because otherwise, if I say, hey, listen to your intuition, you'll say, my body just wants to have 3 bags of chips tonight. No, that's not intuition, right?
Well
so
said.
I give you the framework.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I give you the framework. And so as long as you use the framework, you know what the answer is where. So you make choices. It makes your wellness easy. It's a very loving and gentle approach. My idea is nothing. You cannot heal anything. If it's not love and it's not kind, it's not ease. And it's not ease, it's going to be disease. So it's a very loving
that.
approach to bringing you back. It gives people a 21-day. So I just really quickly, part 1 is the most important part because it gives you the framework.
Great.
Part 3 takes you on a 21-day journey that one by one, you bring it into your life. One change a day,
that.
one shift a day, micro shifts. These are micro shifts, have massive impact. And I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of women doing this. And the spice is one of the days, how do you bring in spices? So I tell people, don't jump into part 3. You're very tempted. People just want to go into action quickly.
Of course.
I said, don't jump into part 3. Part 1 is the most important. Because, it's like this, right? If you were driving, Mindy, from LA to San Francisco, you wanted to make that trip, you would first put it into your GPS. You would look at the way. You'd see where you're going to take a break, how you're going to navigate. Once you've mapped it out, you can drive. Part 1 and 2 allow you to map it out. So it's called Your Body Already Knows, and that's where people can find it.
Oh my gosh. As an author, I will tell you that it's not easy to put a book like that together. So let me just say thank you for everything you've done. I really find, and my audience knows this, I find books to be the best way to really embody a message or a teaching, because as an author, you spend a lot of time really looking at how you put the information together, if the sentences structure is exactly what you would say. Whereas when we're in a conversation like this, we're sort of speaking from a lot of pieces of information. And when you're reading, you actually can put that information down in a way that is incredibly clear and focused and action oriented. So thank you for doing that. I'm excited for everybody to get this.
Thank you. And thank you for doing everything that you do, Mindy. And thank you for such a thoughtful interview.
Thank you. I loved it. I'm gonna go grab the book and take the pieces, and I'm gonna go to Spotify and find some raga. I'll do it. I'm gonna do the evening thing tonight. So
you have to let me know how it goes.
I will. You've totally inspired me. So this is phenomenal. Where can people find your book? I know it just came out.
Yeah. So Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, I think all the top retail stores. I just find it easier to order off Amazon.
Yeah.
But you can find it anywhere. You can go on Kindle, on Audible. So all of that is available to you. People can find me on my website. It's my first name, last name.com, nidhipandya.com.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, Nidhi, this was incredible. You've fired me up and I can't wait to go to sleep
Thank
tonight.
you so much.
So it's going to, I'm going to go and get some sesame oil and we're going to start the routine tonight. So, and please, those
Thank
of
you
you
so much, Mindy.
listening, like give us feedback and let us know how it works for you. So thank you, Nidhi, so much. This was a great conversation. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much.